What's up? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Hardcore Challenge Live. I am the commish, Ben Klein, and this is our Super Bowl breakdown plus divisional round recap edition. Obviously, the divisional round is in the books. There are only two left standing to face off in Super Bowl VIII. The 2010 league champ and 2016 Great White North Division champ, I'm thinking RBs, faces off against 2016 Dirty South Division champ, Beaver Street Roar. Before we get into that breakdown, let's quickly touch on how we got here by looking back at the divisional round playoff games that wrapped up last night with Monday Night Football. The first game just was decided before the kickoff of Monday Night Football even happened, as Beaver Street Roar was the first to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl as they took down Renegade Misfits. Renegade was strong going down the stretch in the regular season and was coming off their first playoff win in the Hardcore Challenge coming into this game. But Doug Martin not being able to go hurt them probably the most, logging a 0 in the number one running back slot. You can't have that in the playoffs, and that was really a killer. Ended up losing by 20 points. You know, obviously a healthy Doug Martin and maybe a couple points here or there. That game goes a different way. Doug Baldwin was huge for him, as was Drew Brees, but the rest of the team just did not stack up as Beaver Street Roar finished off a solid, as I said, 20-point victory. Now, the second game was much more of a nail-biter as it went down to the end of Monday Night Football before it was decided. I'm thinking RBs brought their record-setting regular season into the matchup with one of the hottest teams all season, Lick My Rawls. It was an absolute shootout. It did not disappoint. RB's team was done coming into Monday Night Football after posting a staggering 202 points. Lick My Rawls came into Monday Night Football with horses still in the stable and had a big but manageable gap to close. It proved to be too much as they came up short 21 points, only scoring 181. Now let me say that again. Only scoring 181. To score 181 and be on the losing end one game from the Super Bowl has to be painful. But it is always about the matchup. Biggest disappointment, I'm sure, is the fact that the namesake Rawls posted a goose egg for Lick My Rawls in the biggest game of the year. That's got to be a kicker, man. Because when 181 to 202, you were this close in a freaking absolute shootout. Absolute shootout. So when you're looking at the strength of both of these teams, obviously, I'm thinking RB's is stacked at the running back position. But when you're looking at Beaver Street Roar, they, with DeMarco Murray and Le'Veon Bell, are also stacked at the running back position. So it's a very, very interesting matchup. Very interesting matchup. Both these teams put up a lot of points this season. And let's see just where. Obviously, RB's was on a record-setting pace. Beaver Street Roar was the second highest scoring team, number 2 ranked seed. So these two teams have been on a collision course for quite some time. Now, shockingly enough, as I went back in the annals of the Hardcore Challenge history, Beaver Street Roar and I'm thinking RB's have never faced off head-to-head before in their tenure in the Hardcore Challenge. Arby's is arguably 1 or 2 in the history of the Hardcore Challenge on the power rankings historically. When you're looking at this game, you can argue for Oski Assassins, but it would obviously be either between them and Arby's for who's at the top. Obviously, if Arby's wins this game, this will be, even just getting here, is their 3rd Super Bowl appearance, which ties them with Oski Assassins, who leads the league with 3. So if they get a win here, there will be no more arguments who is by far the top dog in the Hardcore Challenge. But you have to ask yourself, do you go with history? The Toms have been a very, very strong owner. Or do you go with the new blood and the any given Sunday scenario that Beaver Street Roar could take them down. Now, first thing you got to look at, obviously, is the quarterbacks. And when you're this late in the season, you also have to start looking at the teams they're on, what they've got left to fight for, who they're playing, etc. You got Tom Brady. Brady's still got something to fight for going to Miami. They're still looking to secure home field advantage. If they lose and the Raiders win, the Raiders can take home field advantage. So they still need to win. Brady's got something to fight for. So I totally see them going to Miami and playing that like a regular game. They wanted to get the W. They're wanting to roll into the playoffs. Now Cam Newton, on the other hand, I'm not 100% sure what they're going to do with Cam Newton against the Bucs in a game that really doesn't mean anything. You know, it means something for the Bucs, but it really doesn't mean anything for the Panthers. So, and the way Cam's played, Cam could catch some pine. I had mentioned this to Mr. Herron last week before last week's game when I talked to him about a potential issue if it came down to what we're looking at right now, and I was hoping he had something in mind. So we will see. We will see. Obviously, these the two Super Bowl owners have the entire waiver wire to be able to use at their discretion to build their Super Bowl roster. So, you know, there are things to do. So now, the same scenario comes to the other side when you're looking at the running back position. If I'm thinking Arby's, there are two horses, LaShawn McCoy and David Johnson. Do they need it, man? Are the Bills gonna run McCoy? Are they gonna run him against the Jets when they just got rid of Rex? Big question mark there. David Johnson, same thing. Well, what are the Cardinals gonna do with these guys? T.Y. Hilton also. Raiders eliminated the Colts last weekend. It's another big question mark there. When you're looking at the running backs, DeMarco Murray, Le'Veon Bell. What are they going to do with Le'Veon Bell when he goes? Because they got Cleveland coming to town. You think they would pound him, but you never know. You know, what do they do when they get to the fourth quarter? Julio Jones, he's been banged up. You know, you're looking at the wide receivers. You got Julio Jones. You got Mike Wallace for the Ravens. So let's step back a second. I obviously seen a clear advantage at quarterback for RBs. I honestly see a clear advantage at running back strictly because of the matchups and the placement of the season and where they ended up and what they're fighting for DeMarco Murray and Le'Veon Bell. I think they may lean on Murray. Mariota went down. Just close out the ceiling and run the rock. I would not be shocked to see that happen. Now at the wide receiver position, also see a little bit of advantage for Beaver Street Roar. I see Hilton and Cooks in the same scenario. Neither one's really got a dog in the fight right now. So that's going to interestingly play into the way things shake out here. Now at the tight end position, I see a solid advantage with Ertz for the Eagles for I'm thinking RBs. And at the flex, I see a nice advantage for Britt with the Beaver Street Roar. Although Coleman, the running back for the Falcons, Tevin Coleman, has some big splash capabilities like he did last week. And you can put a star next to him because he's a guy you got to watch. Because he'd just pop out of there anywhere. And I don't see a huge advantage at either kicker. Defense, you got the Rams defense on the road at Arizona, at home against Arizona, and you got the Dolphins defense at home against New England for Beaver Street Roar. I don't see it being a good matchup for either one, so it's really going to come down to turnovers on that. You know, looking across their individual defensive players, I don't see any stars on either of them that jump out at me. So it's going to come down to somebody making a big play. Is it Arakpo? You know, is it Coleman, Alexander making a pick off a big play? Who knows? It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. It's the Super Bowl. It's the last week of the season. So it's hard to tell who's going to be the MVP when it comes down to it. Who's going to be the MVP that helps Beaver Street Roar raise the cup? Who's going to be the MVP that helps I'm Thinking RBs raise the cup? There's a lot these owners got to weigh before things kick off. That is for sure. There's no players with Thursday night action. And at the end of the late games, we're going to have a really good idea where this is at. As I'm Thinking RBs will have possibly played all of their players the way it looks now. And you would have a defensive back still going for Beaver Street Roar in Sunday Night Football. But theoretically, we could know at the end of the late games that it's over. So, what the tentative schedule for the live stream Super Bowl coverage will be, we're going to start the kickoff coverage about 10 to 15 minutes before the early game kickoffs. I would like to reach out to both owners, Mr. Matt Herron, owner of the Beaver Street Roar, Tom Mandick, owner of I'm Thinking RBs. I would like to have one of you gentlemen on about 10 minutes before kickoff. I would like to have the other one on about 5 minutes before kickoff so I can spend a few minutes with each one of you before your Super Bowl fires off. Obviously, you guys will surely have your lineups locked in and be ready to go. If you would like to push it a little earlier so that you have the last 5 minutes to set your lineup, we can surely do that as well. But I would like to have both of you guys on shortly before the kickoffs of the first game. So I'll be reaching out to both of you. Also going to be reaching out to some of your other owners, some of the new owners. I'd like to have some of you guys on, some interviews through the first part of the first game. Obviously fill a little bit of the airtime and, hopefully in between the barrage of scoring that we'll have going. As a lot of these guys on the roster, the early games, the fireworks are going to happen early, possibly, in the Super Bowl. But there's some big players still in the late games as well. So you got David Johnson, you got Cooks, you've got Julio Jones, you've got J.J. Nelson, possibly. You've got defensive linemen going. You've got kickers. You got defenses. There's it's going to be a full slate. Possibly could come down to a defensive back in Sunday Night Football the Beaver Street Roar has hanging in there. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. So, ran through the breakdown. You heard what I had to say. Please post in the comments, anybody that's watching, anybody that's listening live, what's your predictions? You've got I'm Thinking RBs on one hand. He set the league scoring record this season for the regular season. He leads the league in playoff appearances, division titles. He's been to 2 Super Bowls before. He's won 1 championship. And he's back again, coming off a 202-point week. On one hand, you have him. On the other hand, you have the Beaver Street Roar. He is the young blood, the new blood. He has come up. He's put a good team together, and he has ran a really, really solid season this season. And his team looks very, very strong coming into the playoffs. Kind of stumbled a little last week, but all you got to do is win that matchup. So, who do you guys think is going to win? Beaver Street Roar? I'm Thinking RBs. Don't we all, John? Don't we all? And as I was reaching out to some of the owners earlier, they're trying to see who's availability for interviews. Mr. Brad Kozlarich, owner of Aussie Assassins, he put out there that he believes the Beaver Street Roar is going to win. His money's on the Beaver Street Roar. So I'm going to put Brad on point because I have it saved in a message that he did say he thought the Beaver Street Roar was going to win. So, who do I think is going to win? I'm really looking at the matchups here. The matchups and the fact that it's week 17, it always comes into play a little bit. It's part of the game of fantasy football. We play it from the start to the freaking finish of regular season. We're a big league, big pool, big stakes, and it's from start to finish. So, you take it all into equation. You got to play it all. I predict, Mr. Matt Herron, that we will be shocked, and the Beaver Street Roar wins Super Bowl VIII, and the Hardcore Cup will be raised, and it will live and remain in Iowa. It's somewhere else in Iowa right now. I think Cedar Falls. I don't remember where. Somewhere. But that's my prediction. I think Arby's has some tough matchups this week. I think the Dolphins defense may get to Brady a little bit. I don't think Brady's going to have the game he typically has. I don't think they're going to run McCoy as much, and I don't think they're going to run Johnson as much, and I'm a little questionable about Hilton as well. So, that's what I think. I'm predicting. Now, obviously, you look at the 130-something that Beaver Street Roar put up last week and the 202 that Tom put up this week. You would say, obviously, you would think I was crazy. But I'm looking at the matchups, and I think this game's going to be very, very close. And I think they're going to squeak one out. So, I could be wrong. And the cup goes north of the border for the third time, and Tom becomes the first two-time champion, puts all to rest, as they will be the top dog historically in the Hardcore Challenge. So that could also very possibly happen. Who knows? But it's gonna be awesome. So I'm gonna live stream. I want to get both of you owners on before the kickoff, maybe 10-15 minutes before the kickoff of the early game. We're going to live stream. I want to get a bunch of interviews set up. I'm going to be contacting everybody, some of the new owners, some of the owners that were in the playoffs. I'm going to probably be reaching out to everybody and see if you'd like to participate. Get you guys all in the first 3 hours of the show. In the second game, right about probably a little before the first game's over, I'm going to cut out the live feed from the studio, and we're going to move it over with the Florida Raider Nation over at Topgolf, and we're going to do some live streaming from over there in the late games. And if we crown a winner, which is possible that at the end of the late game we will be crowning a winner of the 2016 Hardcore Championship. We will crown it live at Topgolf with the Florida Raider Nation. And then we'll bring it back here in studio for a quick little recap and wrap up of the Super Bowl coverage. So that's kind of the tentative plan for Sunday. So, obviously you're not going to tune in the whole damn time. Don't expect you to, but maybe you can pop in and out and, follow along with the score, follow along with the action while you're sitting there watching football in Week 17. We're all going to be watching football, so you might as well watch football. Watch the culmination of the final 20-owner season of the Hardcore Challenge. You got the Beaver Street Roar. You got I'm Thinking RBs. Remember, no show tomorrow. Stay posted, because I will update everyone on the plans for the Super Bowl live broadcast as they are set through the groups. The Super Bowl is here. Place your bets. Who raises the cup in 2016? Is it Matt Herron? Is it Tom Mandick? Are you two ready for the challenge? Good luck. Game on.